your demands and where you currently stand in the ECI timeline of signature collection.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my name is Helmut Burtscher-Schaden. I'm working for an Austrian NGO, Friends of the Earth Austria. Our name is Global 2000. I'm a biochemist, and I'm one of the initiators of the ECI Save Bees and Farmers, an ECI that was officially started at the beginning of October, but it took us some time to get all the electronic and data stuff straight, so that in fact we did start in November. And now we do have around 300,000 signatures, which is a little bit less than we have expected. But of course, um, our issue is on biodiversity, bees, farmers, and how they are connected with also this climate relation. And we focused our efforts in spring, because spring is the time when these issues are present, when you see bee decline during the winter and things like that. And just when we wanted to really start, these corona pandemia did interrupt much of our efforts. And yeah, this is where we are now.
Okay, yeah, good. So that now it's also very bad timing for you, but of course for so many other initiatives too. Can you tell me a
Yeah.
little more about how your campaigning efforts have been affected by the crisis? You said now in the spring would be a great time for you to get started and to really launch the signature collection. How much of your work was also done offline before? And how is the transition to being completely digital campaigning? How has that been for you?
Mm-hmm. We had a lot of plans for offline uh, gathering of signatures. We at Global 2000 Austria do have quite big action unit, and we have freelance supporters, young people from universities, and there have had been, I think, a lot of events. For example, a big summit on climate change, where we had our special unit there to get signatures. Um, Even though in Austria it's a little bit more difficult to get offline signatures than other places, because we do need passport numbers. So the way how we deal with this is to get signatures with email addresses, so that we come back to them when they say, yes, I want to be reminded. So to really direct them to where they can, when they're at home and have their passport, do this. And all those activities, of course, have been cancelled. And also, what also was affected is some campaigning tools that we planned, for example, to make pesticide tests in these small water, I do not know how to say it in English, pfützen, on farming fields after it rained. Then you find water. This is where bees get their water, wild bees mostly. And just to show which pesticides are there, we also planned some tests on pesticide drift. We had the equipment, everything was prepared at the laboratory, and yeah, all these things that are important to raise public awareness on the problems uh, that do surround the pesticide um, issue were not possible. But of course, this affects everyone. So I do not want to complain too much. Yeah. But when I look as someone who is responsible for the ECI, and we have put in, ECIs are quite expensive. Yeah, hundreds of thousands of euros you need to establish the technical stuff. And we did this. We did a lot of fundraising, and we put also resources from our organization in it. And now it's of course sad if it's not possible to reach the goals that you have worked for. Yeah. And what we did is we wrote a letter to the Commission and asked for how do you say in English? prolongation of of, uh, of about 6 months in order to give us the possibility to do that afterwards what we would have liked to do now in this time. And we think that 6 months could be a realistic time if the pandemic will be over earlier, of course, then maybe 4 months are appropriate.
Yeah, yeah. So the commission should decide in the next weeks whether they will extend the deadline for signature collection for all the
Mm-hmm.
open initiatives right now that would be affected. How much will an extension in signature collection help maintain your campaigning efforts and maintain the momentum that you've already gathered? And how will these extra 4 or 6 months help you then later down the line? And what kind of events then could you have that to try to make up for this lost time that
Mm-hmm.
downtime right now in signature collection?
I think it will help. Um, of course, it's nothing is now really perfect with this interruption. Yeah, you did plan everything, but this is what happened to everyone out there, not only NGOs, but people who worked, who children in school. Everyone has to deal with the new situation, and I think if the Commission will give us this prolongation, I think it's a fair chance to reach our goals that maybe are very difficult to reach with these really hard problems, because it's not only that we have problems to get these offline signatures, we also have problems to be um, present in the media discussion. You know, there was uh, a lot of discussion before, and very, very important discussion on climate change, on biodiversity loss, on the need of a European New Green Deal, on the need of a biodiversity strategy, on the need of a transition of agriculture. And this was a dialogue that we were prepared to become a part in. Now, these issues are completely off the table, and everyone is talking only and writing only and broadcasting only about Corona, which, of course, since it's affecting so much of our daily life now, is logical, but it's quite a big, huge problem for us to do our job in order to raise awareness that the ECI exists and that it's very important now to deal with the biodiversity crisis. Because one thing is clear to me as a biochemist who has worked, it's a long time, it's 20 years ago, but I worked in immunological research for 5 years before I changed into the environment business. And I'm very convinced, yeah, that this Corona crisis will be solved. Yeah, some countries, I think Austria, Germany, will be about among those that are prepared better and that reacted early. Other countries will have a harder job to do it. And I'm really sad when I think about what will be happening in countries like India or on continents like Africa. But in the end, we will manage the crisis, and the climate crisis and the biodiversity crisis, they are still there. And therefore, it's important that our ECI will succeed at least.
Hmm. How do you think that maybe this crisis could affect the strategy of your ECI and in your different EU member state targets? Maybe some countries will have more prolonged effects. For example, Germany and Austria, as you said, might be able to handle it in a much quicker way and more efficiently. How could that maybe affect your strategy? I mean, you've already chosen your 7 target countries, but is there any strategy, or have you given any thought to putting more focus into those countries who will have the prolonged effects, and you will have to also manage doing campaigning on this topic there while they're still dealing with the after effects?
Mm. This is a question that I'm not sure if we can answer that. Mm. there's so many factors. One factor, for example, if you look at France, France is a country which is quite important, where the biodiversity discussion is very vital. But for us as the ECI, it was until now very difficult, and still is very difficult, to get signatures there. Why? Because France, like Austria, obliges people to give their passport number, and the French people, this is what I was told, do not like this. It's not only that it's complicated, and in the moment when you want to sign, you're used to sign online, you're used to sign with your cell phone wherever you are, and then you see, oh shit, I have to put my passport, and I do not have a passport now in my pocket. This is one problem. The other problem is, do I want to give my passport number? And this is what I was told in France, something that people do not really like, and which makes it more difficult. On the other hand, in France now, like in every other European country, maybe exception of Sweden, people mostly are at home doing their jobs at home office, and they use their computers and their cell phones where also their passport is nearby. So this maybe could even be an advantage if there was not the other fact that it's so difficult to get through with our issues, because people have, in the moment, really, many people have fear about how it will continue. Fear about their health in some cases, in other cases, fear about their economic future, uh, and, 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 the, and the less secure their social environment is, the more they are at risk, of course. So it's a hard time for everyone now. Yeah.
Staying at home and practicing social distancing, that it already has a positive effect in controlling the spread of the virus. But it could be even that fear of people, even months down the line, when there's already a solution for the virus, when there's already a vaccine out there, people still might have a fear to gather in public places. They might still have a trauma a little bit from this time, and they might be scared that there could be another outbreak. And also the rumors going around that there could be an outbreak later in the fall when the weather starts to get colder again, and people are maybe also misinformed, and they just have this fear that it could start again. They won't want to gather in big crowds. That could also affect then campaigning and signature collecting, right? If you're relying on events in the fall when things should calm down, and people are still scared to go to festivals or to go to these conferences, events, it will be hard to reach people.
Yeah, of course. I mean, what makes me afraid is that the reaction of our society to this crisis will be, now we have to do everything to reinforce the old economic system, because this is the most logical way how our society will deal. Yeah, there is the not only the risk, but the fact that we have a I don't know how to say it in English, recession in Germany, German language, recession, that we do have a recession. And so all the money that would be so importantly needed in to fight climate change, to fight biodiversity loss, because if we do not fight this now, it's like Corona. The Corona crisis, and this is what it's a difference, for example, between Austria and other countries who just waited 1 week later. This made a huge difference for containing the amount of infections. And with the climate crisis, you have similar tipping points, but even more, of course. And it's the same thing with the biodiversity crisis. Both are very, very, very tight connected. And the fear is that even though we have been to some extent on a good way with the new Commission, with the European Green Deal, with what our new Commissioner von der Leyen publicly stated, I think these were quite interesting words and important words that she said. But now I miss them, and I think they won't be heard anymore. Yeah? And this is my biggest fear. On the other side, it's a society experiment for every one of us. That, I mean, that we do have more time, and we also experience what is important and what is not important. Important is to get agricultural products that are available and that are healthy. And this is something that is not so selbstverständlich, we would say in Germany. Um, what is also important is to have access to medical products, to antibiotics. But now we found that antibiotics, oh, of course, Bayer has antibiotics, but it's produced in China. So if this won't work anymore, and we see that it's a fragile system, so many people start to think about resilience, yeah. And resilience is also a key issue when you talk about the climate and biodiversity crisis. So if these would be our lessons learned from the crisis, this would be the right lessons. But my fear is that the lessons that our society will take out of that are different from that.
Yeah, it's really a test for society, isn't it? In the
Yep.
big picture. Yeah. Yeah, good. That's all the questions I have now. So yeah, thank you, Helmut, very much for your time, and thank you for answering my questions and telling us your perspective. Yeah, I wish you all the best and good luck, and I hope that there's a solution soon for for your initiative and all the initiatives that will be now, yeah, affected by this. It's really unfortunate, especially that your initiative will really in the spring is now high time and good timing for collection of signatures. So I hope that there will be a good solution for this. So yeah, thanks again so much.